Hi, my name is Tina, and I have a very unusual job, if you can call it this way. It's all about helping people, even if it looks like something indecent from the outside. It's not like that at all. And if you watch this video to the end, you'll understand what I mean. So, it all started after I graduated high school. I went to conquer a big city. I wanted to enter the psychology department of a college. I've always enjoyed helping people, talking to them, trying to understand them. Anyway, I saw myself only in this profession in my future. But something went wrong. Maybe I didn't prepare well enough for the entrance exams, because I've been spending all days on long walks and having fun with my friends. Or maybe the competition was quite serious. Anyway, I failed the entrance exams. I didn't even think this could ever happen to me, so I didn't know how to go home and look my parents in the eye. They believed in me, supported me, including financial support, and I couldn't meet their expectations. I decided I wouldn't go back to my hometown anyway, so I started looking for a job. I told my parents everything was fine. I entered college and I'll study to be a psychologist as I dreamed. I planned to work for a year, save up some money, and try to enter again. Just take it more seriously and prepare well. Of course, the problems immediately started to fall on me one after another. First, I had to think about where to live now. Fortunately, I was immediately sheltered by a friend of mine whose parents went on a long trip. Second, there were almost no employers who wanted to hire a young girl with no higher education or work experience. The only decent options I had were to work as a delivery girl or cashier at a fast food cafe. At least that was something. Of course, the salary was too small, especially given the fact that I would soon have to look for housing, which means paying rent. I almost wish I'd gone back to my parents, where at least I'd always have a roof over my head, but I wasn't going to give up. Once I saw an advertising booklet on a street. I was about to throw it in the trash, but my eyes caught its unusual name, Happy Hugs. I didn't understand at once what it was all about, but I got interested. When I got home, I immediately searched their website on the internet. When I finally realized what they were doing, I was very surprised. Anyway, the company Happy Hugs provided a strange service. Hugs for hire. A professional hugger comes to the customer. He or she can spend the night with the customer, without sex, of course. Hugger and customer can go to the movies or just sit in a cafe and talk, holding hands. Judging by the customer reviews, their services were used by lonely or too busy people who didn't have enough time for such simple human things like warmth or hugs. Or by the people who are in a difficult emotional state, like divorce, loss of a loved one, failure at work. These people just didn't want to contact psychologists. The soonest appointment for a hug session was available the following month only, so I concluded this service was quite in demand. By chance, my eyes fell on another ad on the site, which said the company was recruiting employees, people who wanted to give others their hugs and support. The requirements for candidates were very simple: a major guy or a girl ready to help others. And there was a big advantage: a rented apartment in the city center provided for work and living. I would be more than happy to get this job. First, I would solve my problem with housing. Second, this practice will be interesting for me as a future psychologist. Anyway, I called the phone number and had an interview the next day. The woman who owned the company was very kind and pleasant. She explained the working conditions and asked a couple of questions about my lifestyle. It turned out before the hug session with customers, a quick photo shoot is conducted. They choose 3 to 4 cool shots of you, and you also sign an agreement of a platonic communication form. It turned out huggers even have their own encyclopedia, a book with about 50 poses for hugs. And someone made it all up. Melanie, the owner of this company, warned that sometimes customers do go overboard, but in this case, the hugger can immediately stop the session without a refund. Judging by her words, there were some men among the customers. Well, in ordinary life, it's very difficult for a man to admit he needs someone's support. And there are also strong businesswomen who simply allow themselves to be weak and even cry during the hug sessions. On average, the professional hugger service costs $80 to $100 per hour, and if the client wants a night, it starts at $400. Of course, the biggest part of the income goes to the company, but the huggers part was still quite decent. The more Melanie talked about all the details and interesting cases, the more I wanted to start working. I didn't even doubt that I could do it. A couple of days later, I moved into a cozy, bright, and spacious apartment in the city center. It turned out I was going to live with a roommate. This was done intentionally, so that during the work of the hugger, someone would watch the crazy customers. Of course, this has never happened in the history of the company, but such caution was always necessary. So, they posted my profile on the website, and I was waiting for the first order. I was very worried because I was afraid my customer would be some nasty man, and I wouldn't want to work here anymore. But I can say I was fabulously lucky. My first customer was an adult, but rather nice man. He worked as a broker at an insurance company. He spent a lot of time in the office, and that's why his fiancée left him. He had a very painful breakup experience. So he hoped a hug and a heart-to-heart conversation with a stranger could help him at least a little to cope with this situation. As Melanie had said, we chose some positions for hugs. Both of us were terribly shy. We signed all the necessary documents and went to the bedroom. My client told me his story of dating his fiancée. I hugged him and said yes or no at the right moments. That was all he needed. I can honestly say I noticed a difference in his emotional state after the 3 hours we spent together. It seemed to me his shoulders were straightened, and his eyes looked alive. So my work wasn't in vain. And then the customers poured to me in an endless river. Women, men, old, and very young people. There were even some people who just decided to find out what Hugs for Hire was about, and those who really needed hugging help. Each of them had their own story, which they were happy to share with me. But there were also some people who preferred to be silent for 1 to 2 hours, and just let themselves be hugged and squeezed in my arms, as if I was a big teddy bear for them. Having worked as a hugger, I was once again convinced I wanted to become a psychologist. I like to help people, give them advice if they expected it from me, evaluate their actions and decisions. Now I had enough of the customers' stories to write a whole thesis. Some customers took my services for the whole night, but this didn't cause me any discomfort. I even loved sleeping with my arms around someone. The only thing that bothered me was that I was still concealing what I was doing from my parents. Mom and Dad were sure I was studying to be a psychologist, and sometimes I just went to the university building to take a couple of photos and send them. Besides, I was offended by the way our neighbors looked at us, but I could understand them, to some extent. Well, imagine that 2 young, pretty girls live in the apartment nearby, and every day a crowd of guests come to them. The guests stay in their apartment for 1 to 2 hours and then leave. What would you think of these girls? I think the answer is obvious. But even the feeling of shame towards my parents and the sidelong glances of my neighbors would never make me give up my job, which I truly love. I'm saving up for college now, but I don't plan to quit my job as a hugger after I pass the entrance exams. Would you hug a stranger and maybe go to bed with him or her and sleep while hugging? How do you feel about hugs? Do you like to hug, or do you think this is some stupid thing? Write your answers in the comments. Don't forget to click the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to always stay tuned. Hugging everyone. Bye-bye, guys.